La diffusion vient de démarrer. Tous les participants sont en mode écoute seule.
Good afternoon from Washington, D.C. This is Ed Salzberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Security and Sustainability Forum. And I welcome you to a webinar that I've really been looking forward to producing. It's using a visualization tool to bring biomimicry into sustainability decision making. And we have three biomimicry experts who are going to be making the presentation. Hugo Araujo, who's the co-founder of 7 Vortex, which is a platform that the tool lies on, and it's a mind mapping tool, something I've been using for years and very interested in seeing how they're doing it. Carolina Fernandez-Jansink is really a user. She's not part of the company. She has her own company, started a really interesting organization, Cascading Sustainability, which consults on sustainability techniques all over the world. And Melina, who's not quite on yet, she's in transition coming over here, and she co-founded a company called Biosystemics, and she's also a professor at a university in Columbia, in which she brings the tool in and uses it to manage her classes, which I think is really pretty interesting. I'm going to turn this over to Hugo in just a second, who's going to run the program, but I want to let you know that you can add your questions to the GoToWebinar window at any time. Please put them in, and we'll be screening them as we go along. Please take the exit survey. We ask some questions there that help us move forward. One question I especially think is important, we ask you how you're going to use what you learned in the session today. The video will be ready a little bit later today, and you'll get an email about that. And the slides are already in the handout window, and you can download them at any time. If you don't know the Security and Sustainability Forum, we run free webinars like this and address some really amazing issues. Climate adaptation, all kinds of things. It looks like Melina may just be on. Great, so she's going to make it with us. Please go to our website, ssfonline.org. Take advantage of the free education that's there. Everything we do is free, and faculty from all over the world and professionals from all over the world use the programs that we develop for curriculum enrichment. We have several webinars coming up. You can see them in the slides. Just anything that's in blue is registration is open now. And I just want to call your attention to the one we're doing next week on future forces that will disrupt sustainability business. It's a little bit related here. It's much more on policy and programs. So, please take a look. And now I'm going to turn this over to Hugo and Melina. Welcome. I see that you're on through Hugo, and you just follow along with us, and I think everything is going to be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now let's all turn our cameras off except for Hugo, and we'll just move forward.
So wait. Do you see my screen now? No.
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go.
What about now? Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
Thank you. Well, thank you for this opportunity, Edward. It's really important for us, and we'd like to share this hour in a very optimal way. So the first part is going to be about explaining about biomimicry, and then a little bit about the tool and why ecosystems. And then we are going to get into the 3 different use cases. So one presented by Carolina, talking about business. The other one presented by Melina, talking a little bit more about education. And the case 3 will be, again, myself, explaining a little bit more on terms of organization. And we're going to have a Q&A session for all those that are interested in learning more or just throwing us questions. But please feel free to do it during the session, so we can fairly stop and respond whatever you need. So talking about biomimicry, well, sustainability, it is a part of biomimicry and our approach, because we really see it as in sustainability, we're always thinking about how to emulate nature in terms of biomimicry, but also how to better understand the ecosystems. And all these kind of things happens through the relationships. So if you want to be resource efficient, if you want to recycle materials, locally attuned or resilient, it happens through the relationship. So this is one of the very important parts of the presentation. So the same for complexity. Complexity, it is about understanding the emergence of the patterns that we see there, and the visualization towards regeneration. So using this approach on regeneration, we see that we need to adapt to changing conditions to evolve to survive, and specifically create condition conducive to life. So the main problem that we want to address today in this webinar is that we, as a sustainability pioneers and biomimicry pioneers as well, we see that sustainability issues are always complex, and most of the tools that we see around there, they are mainly linear. But we wanted to present this approach on the tool that is attractive visual systems in order to take better decisions, facilitate the discussion, and change perception. So the biomimicry, it is applied, it is embedded into this tool, and we can go to the different elements of biomimicry. So we have learned with the Biomimicry Institute and with Biomimicry 3.8, and we use the essential elements as our guiding pillars for doing biomimicry. So you can see lots of applications in biomimicry, but this is really important for us. So the ethos, the reconnect, and the emulate, because we really want to make it happen from these basics. So the life principles is another design criteria that we use, and we have all these set of principles that are correspondent to living systems. So one of them is adapt to changing conditions, be locally attuned and responsive. And for example, in this one, locally attuned and responsive, we have sub-principles: leverage cyclic processes, use feedback loops, cultivate cooperative relationships. So we have been trained and we have been iterating these principles in nature to see if they were actually working. And this is very, very, very interesting, because by using these principles and by using the process of biomimicry thinking, which is a very non-linear process, but it goes about discovering natural models, for example, and discover natural models, abstract the biology, the biological strategies behind it, then identify a specific function that we want to address in terms of biological taxonomy. So we also use this taxonomy that you can find in the web in As Nature as well. So this taxonomy allows us to see what is the functionality that we want to achieve. We have defined the context, brainstorm on some ideas, and then we integrate the life principles, which is the part that I was telling you, life principles and the sub-principles as well. And then we emulate the deep pattern. So this deep pattern is the one that I have here, that is on the biological relationship. So when you study an ecosystem, and this goes again to the ecosystemic part, then you can see that competition is a minus and predation is a plus minus. So this is interesting because organism A towards organism B, it is actually taking the energy. So this is a predatory relationship. This is a competitive relationship, and to our surprise, this is a collaborative relationship. So when we set up win-win relationships in between both, then we are establishing a biological relationship in terms of collaboration. So this tool has been developed for gathering collective intelligence and for helping pioneers, communities, and organizations to have a knowledge base and to gather all this. So for the pioneer, it's a curation tool. For a community, is more an inspiration source. And for organization, it works also as an information system. So this is the kind of things that we are going to explain later on in this presentation. But just to give you a quick dive into what biomimicry is and how we can implement it, and a specific example of a platform, a digital platform that is using the essential elements, the life principles, the design process, biomimicry thinking, and the biological pattern as well. So this is about changing the narrative. This is about being able to share a story. And for example, something really simple, as I was saying in predation, we have now this relationship with Earth. So the planet, it is being predated by humanity. So we are gaining the energy, but we are not giving the energy back. So this is a predatory relationship that we need to switch. So this is the kind of narrative that we can implement by visualizing the biological relationships. So nowadays, this is a degenerative economy and degenerative relationship, but we can also use the same kind of tool for explaining regeneration. So for example, in the groups that we are working together, where the three of us are on regenerative thinking as well. So we work on water as an essential element of the bioregions. So we want to enhance the water, the bioregions, biodiversity, and we want to empower us as a human species altogether to have a better bioculture and to live in thriving ecosystems. And we think by doing all these things, we can actually sequestrate and diminish and predate the CO2 emissions that we are doing above the limit, and therefore focusing on living and having a thriving planet as well. So let me do a small exercise on how to use the tool, and then we will move on into the cases. So whenever you come here, you will go to 7 Vortex, and this is our open innovation source or our open creative source when we see all different kinds of curations. So it is really about understanding the perspectives. And if you want to create one, you can explore all of these. So we will see some cases later on. But if you want to create one, then you have to log in. You have to have your own user, which is for free. And you just need your email and password. And then you will have a playground. And this is more on the second vortex or map or curation or ecosystem, digital ecosystem. So when we see here, this is a bubble, and the bubble has a title. So for example, just getting back into the humanity example, we can put a link, another type of link. We can put a date, a category, so a color, and we can upload an image or a video. So it makes it very multimedia oriented. And we can add a description, a tag, and then we save it. So to build a relationship out of this humanity bubble, we just drag and drop a line outside of the bubble. And this gives us, again, the Earth, for example. We can put it here. And if we want to, let's say, curate it and put it here and saying, I want a bigger size so I can use it like this, then I come back to this part. And here in the relationship, when I click in the relationship, then I can establish this type of predatory relationship just because we know it. But this is on bringing the experience into the digital realm. And this is the purpose that we would like to have as a sustainability pioneers and biomimicry pioneers, I think so. So let me just move in the presentation. So now let me give the word to Carolina, so she can explain us a little bit more on this specific focus on businesses. So Carolina, you want the screen or you want me to keep going?
I think we're okay, Hugo, if you can go to the next slide. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Edward, and very happy to be here. I will be presenting the way I use 7 Vortex, how we can map and help us make decisions and make agreements. So what is important to mention now is that you can go into many different levels of application. You can go into the basic level where you do sort of a mapping of stakeholders that we're used to doing that. Then there is this another level where you start mapping the flows of information that happen between those stakeholders, right? So I'm gonna go from level to level. But one important thing to say related to sustainability is that the quality and the quantity of connections tell us a lot about the state of health of that system or that business system. So if we have, when we have a degenerative system, we want to have isolated bits so that the problem doesn't pass to other parts of the system. But when we want to create a regenerative system, actually we thrive in complexity and we want to make those connections. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So another characteristic of healthy system is that they are very embedded and locally attuned. So what that means is that a business that is listening to what the market needs and how the market is flowing in terms of value exchanges, energy exchanges, is going to be a business that is very resilient and is very responsive to changes, no? Very innovative at the same time. So that's what we want. And you can tell when a business is resilient or not based on how well connected it is to its context or its stakeholders. Next slide, please. So this is a very simple table. What I try to do here is to place in this table how we can go from a poor health or low health, where the connections are poor, to high. So the quantity of connections in a poor, in the middle column, is very few, like I said. So when you isolate an organism, it hardly evolves, right? Unless that organism is part of a degenerative system, then you want to isolate it so it doesn't influence it in a negative way, let's say. But you will find that organisms that are very much isolated in their ecosystems are the ones that evolve the least. No? So that's the difference between the amount of connections between few and many. The strength of those relationships tell us something as well, and we can see this with clients. No? So when we talk about clients, we say, do we have a strong relationship? That's going to mean that the client is going to come back to me, that is going to ask for more services, that is going to be more forgiven, that is going to be a little bit less price sensitive, right? It's the same with employees. So we attract talent, we retain talent, etc. So that relationship, the stronger it is, the more resilient that relationship is, right? What Hugo just talked about, which is the type of exchange. So it can be an energy exchange, it can be a nutrient exchange, it can be information exchange. But when we have a relationship that is negative for someone, doesn't matter who it is, the system is affected in a negative way, right? So that's why there are very few competitive relationships in nature, because that's not how life thrived. Life thrived and evolved through 3.8 billion years thanks to collaborations, and there had to be a positive, right? The negative ones were extracting energy from the system, so they tend to go extinct. Those strategies already went extinct, most of them. So this is very important, because this is not what they teach us in business school. We talk about competition and about strategy that comes from the military practices. But in fact, the future is going to come, and especially for positive impact, when we start collaborating. And the last part, which is as a result of the other ones, is the ease of flow. So how easy does my client get my value proposition? How easy do I send the message, and is the message received from me? Yes, so this is very theoretical. I'm gonna go more, the next slide, please. So I'm gonna show two examples. Like I said, one simple one and one a little bit more elaborated. And next time we're around, I can show more versions that are more advanced. But the first level, next slide, please. There are many ways we can map stakeholders, right? Many different ways we can map them. And we even have the materiality matrix that we were used to doing as sustainability consultants. But this way of mapping through 7 Vortex, what it does is it maps, and you can see the relationship between the sustainability dimensions and the players, right? So all the different players, all my different stakeholders, were clients, shareholders, communities, ecology, whatever it is, we start mapping not only the relationship we have to them and them with us, but between them. And that way we can map and easily see the leverage points. So who are the keystone species that if I can influence positively that, or I can partner with that one partner, it's going to have an effect, a cascading effect on the rest of the system, right? So that's one thing you get out of this. And the other thing has to do with the issues that we talk about in sustainability. So which sustainable dimensions are the most relevant to my stakeholders, not on a linear base one-on-one, but as a leverage point. And that's very easy to see again in 7 Vortex, because you have a bubble that is bigger. So it's just very easy to navigate, and it's already a step forward. When you show this to people, they can start making connections. It's something you can share with others, and they can add their own connections and see connections that you never thought were there before. So the second, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them during the Q&A session. And the last example, and then I'm going to turn it over to Melina, has to do with the flow. So this is a little bit more advanced, let's say, understanding of a system. that talks about the flows that happen within the system. So it's not just bubble to bubble, connection to connection, but what is flowing in there, right? So when you think that the economic system is a flow of value propositions, of money, of capital moving in the system, you can map how well you're understanding your client based on their own value proposition, right? So you have, let's say, this example is just an example, but let's suppose you have a big company. That big company has a food unit. What's the value for the food unit to belong to the large company, right? That's the first question. And then that food company has a product. What's the value of having that product for the food company? Okay, then the product, how is it addressing the different clusters of clients I have? And the more I can explain to my clients my value proposition as the business, based on how much I enhance their own value proposition. So I don't understand them as a bubble. I understand them as the flow that goes between them, their bubble, and their client, right? So there is always a flow coming bubble to bubble. And that means that the more I can understand that flow, more than the bubble itself, the flow, the relationship between the bubbles, the more I'm going to understand how the system operates. So I hope that was not too much or too confusing. Yeah, if there are any questions, happy to answer them. You can also drop them in the chat box, I suppose. And then I pass it on to Melina.
Okay, great, thank you. I am going to give you an example about education and government and how I have been using it for consulting in government. So you can go next, Hugo.
Do you want the control? I think Edward can give you the control.
That would be perfect. If I can go into the, yeah, so thank you very much. And how I have been using this vortex visualization for applying in academy is because I have been working in the transdisciplinary master in sustainable living systems. Can you open please the map? It is. And this master, we have this goal of integrating the curriculum, and we want to be sure that is very well known for the students and for the teachers what is going on all around the master and what we are learning and how we can integrate knowledge. So can you go to the teachers and coordination first, please? And there is one part that we have been using, and one is staff cross-pollination, and that is a lot of, you don't have to go to the map, well, okay. It's about how we can cross information because we are, I don't know, maybe teaching complexity and, you know, thermodynamics of living systems and themes that not a teacher, for example, for sustainable economics will know, but it is kind of a way in which the teacher of holistic science can put information in front, and the teacher of sustainable economics can start to read the information that is already into the mind of the students. And because it's a new way of teaching sustainability, we need this cross-pollination understanding, so students can make sense and go further in their research and in their comprehensive, you know, like linking and relationships to go, you know, like to really apply sustainability in the world as living system does. So this is one thing that with Seven Vortex, can you go to curricular coordination? And
Melina, I just have
the next bubble. And in this bubble, we see how.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just one question. Does it take too much to teach the students and the professors to use the tool?
Well, actually, no. It's really intuitive as tool, and when I will show you what the students have been doing, they are using it even in their jobs. And what's going on with that is that it is scaling now in the use of institutions all around Colombia, and we are, like pushing hard in this systems thinking because it's really easy to use. And the thing is that how we can see connections, and people are realizing the importance of seeing the connections in that. So, for example, like you go for the use by students bubble. I can ask simply like, okay, you go outside the university and look for a system and try to map it in 7 vortex, like find the elements, the connections, and the relationships. So you can go to spaces. And this is a map that one of my students did last semester. And he chose the cafeteria, and which is the coffee shop of the, this part of the university. And he was trying to track the sustainability in the system. So what he found was a lot of predatory, which are the orange lines, predatory relationships between even the coffee shop and the nutrition of the students, and the environment, and the waste management, and so it is super easy for them to start to see the relationships. Even sometimes we have in mind all these criteria, but when you go to any system and to start to map in here and to say, oh, thinking about what is the relationship, you start to understand the leverage points of the system much more easier, and to see how you want to take an action in that system, how to affect it. So that's kind of what I am teaching at the university. And absolutely, this is the best tool I have for them to really identify this kind of systems. So, and you can go to the presentation and pass to the next example. I want to show
Melina, your audio, Melina, your audio is breaking up a little bit. I think you should turn your camera off, because I think you might have a bandwidth issue there.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I just had a new internet connection just before this, so
if you just click on the icon,
I'm trying it with you.
This might be better.
Right. Okay, great. So so this map was a consultant process I did for a project in government. They had this huge program, and they wanted to be sure that this program will continue after the government stopped to be in a region in Colombia, which is the connection between the Amazon and the Andes, in a very specific area, very deforested area. So they wanted to be sure that that all the projects that they had been doing, which are the more like the orange kind of pink bubbles, they were doing that in and they were doing these programs separated from each other. And then they asked us to map and to like see the system. And when we started to see all the actors that were involved in with the projects, we started to see, if you see in the middle, there is this cloud of institutions that were shared by all but many of the programs. So, and they haven't realized that just, you know, like seeing the connections of those actors in the territory, they already had a network that were able to take care of all the programs, all the projects that they were working on. So just for the visualization tool, they were able to say, oh, okay, let's work first with these actors. And I map also the relationships, and the collaboration relationships were evident. But the other ones, the yellow ones, for example, are relationships that are desired, that they are not happening now. They are neutral for the actor, but the program need this actor to be involved in that program. So concentrating in those relationships, concentrating in that, you know, like understanding how they are connected, they started to make plans to create alliances between them in order to hold the projects that they are working with the communities in this territory. So this visualization, it was the key for taking that decision. And it was just like an emergent understanding of the whole project. So it is very powerful for that. And if you want to come back to the next slide and the next, and this is a map that the National Department for Planning, like a planning national department, I don't know how the equivalence in US for that, but this is like the national, they are planning how to, you know, like give money to anyone and make all this. And the Direction of Sustainable Development and Environment, they decided to use 7 vortex to map everything. And this is just their office, their staff. So that's the map of the staff of this bureau into the National Department of Planning. So that's super important for them. And the feedback I have from them is that they can now know how to share information within the people and know exactly who is doing what. So it's much more efficient. And this is just because, you know, like I got in contact with people, and they started to use the tool, and they now want to do a huge map that I will be working with them about, you know, like how the deforestation is in Colombia. So we will start to see the leverage points in which the national government can act for stopping deforestation and start regeneration in the country. So this is kind of the efficiency of the tool and the visualization tool in order to see sustainability in the level of relationships, leverage points to affect the system, how to understand relationships, you know, like the quality of the relationship, and go further with our actions about those systems. So those are my examples. So if you want to keep going, Hugo, thank you.
So thank you, Melina. Thank you, Carolina, for sharing this time and sharing this experience, because I think they are very rich in terms of how to use it and what kind of things have been delivered. I honestly think that the tool is important, but it is always about the process and the people that use it. So I really appreciate your time of being here. In my case, I'm using it a lot with organizations in general terms. So for example, for delivering a vision on a conversation. So since it is the tool that I have designed, then I also have a performance with a speed. So for example, a vision that it was very, very complicated, and these guys, they were trying to set up the next economies with Bounce Beyond. They were also based on different approaches, such as well-being economics, donor economics, but their narrative was in terms of economic narrative and systemic finance. So having such a simple, beautiful, and I would say attractive model gave them lots of clarity on how to work and what kind of things they should put together as a group. So that was one of my experiences. The other one is about goals and gaps. So we work with an institute in Mexico that is the National Institute of Ecology and Climate Change. So just to not to make it too complicated, these bubbles are, these ones are the main strategies. So they have 4 different main strategies with lines of action that are these ones. And they also have stakeholders. So this is a mix in between strategy and stakeholders. So how are we addressing all these things as an organization, since they have to take care also of the citizen and of the ecosystems? So we found some leverage points, so the coincidences, and these bubbles that are in white so far, they are the organization on its own. So something that we could see here is that some of the lines of action, they don't have any correspondence on the organization. So thanks to this, and going from a document of, I don't know, 100 pages into just one visualization, it was very powerful for them to clarify where the gaps and the possible goals they should be addressing the efforts, for example. So this is another one. And another one that I'm working just right now, it is on Geoversity in Panama. So with Geoversity, it was more about gathering the knowledge. So being an organization in terms of sustainability, it becomes kind of tough and difficult to explain because it's always about complexity. So what we did here is just to use virtual Gaia is one of the projects that I'm working for. So we recorded videos and we put the videos inside. So we had a set of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 videos that were together, and we're putting the people that was participating into these kind of videos and recordings. And at the same time, I was showing these people how to use 7 Vortex, for example, Tamsin, which is also another biomimicry professional. She was also mapping the curriculum of the University School of Biocultural Leadership. So having this clarity, I think, allows you to share also content with others of your team and gives you a focus on whatever you want to achieve. So at some point, all these bubbles on the outer layer, we're giving them lots of information that is a contextualized narrative that could be used in the future for them to better share and inform their students and their staff. And this is one that it seems a little bit more complicated, but it's actually just a conversation. So let's say we are in this webinar, and I was just mapping the conversation live. So they call it vortexing live, and the participants were these ones, the one in pink, and that was done beforehand as a list, as a circle, and some of the organizations, they were mentioned in the presentations, but we're all talking about different kinds of tools on transformation, for example. And something that was really, really interesting is actually by looking into what is inside and not just focusing on who is right and who is not right, we realize that we're talking about transformation, that we all have different approaches, and that these approaches shouldn't be constraining the group conversation, but we're more focused on what transformation is. So now we have the second one, and they are all open in the vortex, but let's say that this is the second one, the second part of this conversation. So now we are understanding that transformation is also about global meaning, collateral damage, regional, carrying capacities, local relevance. And so this works as a multi-dimension matrix, and you can see all the connections through the conversation. So I think this is very useful also for the group to have a common understanding. And so right now we are in the Q&A. We are, I think, 5 minutes ahead, but it would be nice if you have some questions and if you want to jump into the conversation. So we have your feedback also for us.
Great. We have several questions, but this is a good time to put more in. One person, Joanne, raised her hand, and Joanne, if you didn't do that inadvertently and you do want to speak, I'll turn your microphone on in just a second. But before I get to the questions, Hugo, I've just got a couple questions for you and for the team. First of all, mind mapping has been around for a while. And what's different about 7 Vortex than if I just go get a free service or I buy MindX or some of the ones that are around? What's different between 7 Vortex?
Yeah, so as I said, it is also about the visualizing the biological relationships. So you can see the energy exchanges in between these bubbles. So by using biomimicry and understanding a biological pattern, you can understand the energy flow of the system. That is one thing. Also, the purpose of the tool. So some of the tools, mind mapping tools, they are more on the organizing your agenda or these kind of things. And this is more about collaboration and having a common understanding. I don't know if Carolina or Melina, you want to address that question as well.
Just shortly, I think you covered it pretty well, but I think the intentional design behind it is quite different. So when we talk about how do we create and move towards or transition towards more healthy states, whether that's sustainability or regeneration, whatever it is, and you have a tool that helps you transition there. Mm-hmm. It's very the design and how you end up using it and the findings you get are quite different than from a mind map.
So are there then features that you've built into 7 Vortex that are not in just a mind mapping tool that somebody would have to start to really use and build into it in order to give it the kind of functionality that you have here from a sustainability and biophilic or biomimicry standpoint?
Yeah, so totally. It's embedded. I mean, I didn't design it. It was Hugo, but sorry, Hugo. But it was this emerged. It emerged from biomimicry, right? So there are things that we Hugo can go deeper into, but you can see that the users of it usually end up having more sustainable solutions. So you can look at the depth of the iceberg, right, with what intention it was made, just because of the kind of results it creates. Sorry, Hugo, your question than mine.
You want to?
Yeah, I could add something that is because it's so simple to use. It has really few simple rules to make a map like that. You just have to ask what the relationships of each bubble are, and just doing that with this simple rule, you at the end you see the emergence of the whole system. You can see the ecosystem emerges in your eyes, which is something that naturally we need, like to really think and to go into just this complex thinking that, you always feel that you are missing something.
Yeah.
But with this, it's simply emerging, and the information that emerges is much more richer than if you just are, data or, like it's quite amazing. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good answer, and it actually addresses a question that one of the audience asked. Ashwani asked a question that I've been thinking about too, which is really about the decision making that comes out of the visualization. And what he says is, show us how this actually works. For instance, it helps the sustainability folks to address deforestation. Show me how to do that. It's the collab. I'm only going to speak for a second there, but I want to hear your answer. But it's about being able to array everything so you can make a decision. It doesn't make the decision. It just puts you in a position where you can see the relationships. But Hugo and Carolina, just tell me your perspective on how you actually use it and get an answer so people can move forward and fix things.
So I think it is really about the people, and this is something in the intention that you don't see very often in computer programs, because it's more about pushing a button. And here is about bringing your experience into a digital canvas that allows you to see ecosystems. So the mind mapping visualization is kind of normal because it is a universal communication language that we can use. So for example, in this university project, they are going to use it as a translating tool in between Harvard PhD people and indigenous people, because we both have this mind mapping in our heads. So it might help as a translator in between different transdisciplinary approaches and projects.
Mm-hmm. And in that collaboration, the answers start to emerge, or the recommendations or solutions or path forwards.
Yeah,
or
so for example, this one it has been done by a specific young leader of a community in the monarch butterflies reserve. So this is his understanding of things. So it is very easy to use, and whoever wants to use it could use it. But he said that this is giving him a deeper understanding on his own thing. So it is really organic, and I think it is not about dumping a database, but it's actually about understanding what is where the ecosystem is, what the ecosystem is.
Mm-hmm. I had a question which I think also intersects some of the others, and that's how you get started. Carolina, you were talking about working with companies and addressing sustainability questions. When you do an engagement, how do you get started in order to maybe define the problem so that you're both speaking the same language here, so you get the kind of result that they're looking for?
I think you've touched a critical point in the whole movement of sustainability, which is, how do we define sustainability? It means apparently different things for many people. So some people think about it as human well-being. Some people talk about it as a continuation of life, you know, or other things. So when I bring this tool to have that conversation, we immediately start thinking about systems, right? So it's not, we stop talking about sustainability as an isolated problem. Like, we have to improve the sustainability of this company, we have to reduce the CO2. We stop having those conversations, and that's great, because that's not where the solution is. It's on a systemic level. It's not about the CO2 reduction. It's about how do we change the business model or transition to a more healthy business model. How do we become sustainable in the inside so that what we impact on the outside is positive as well, you know? So I think that first conversation, what you just asked, is precisely moving the conversation to higher levels of systemic awareness. And that's what this tool really does.
And then how does the engagement progress? You don't go back into your room and do it all and come back and hand it to them. What does the engagement look like?
Yes, and that's a sustainable engagement. So sustainability is at many different levels. It's at the level of behavior, it's at the level of mental models and paradigms, it's at the level of the structure, the organizational structure, right? And you cannot just move a company or an organization from A to B. It has to be a transition. And the relationship with the client cannot be isolated, talking about systems. So I build a strong relationship that is co-evolving. So I learn a lot from the context, and they learn a lot about healthy systems, right? And the whole engagement runs like that. So it's not a pushing, it's not a pulling, it's a different dynamic. It's a dynamic where we don't set objectives, but we listen to the system, we understand where we are, and let that tell us the answers of what the next moves are supposed to be in a better direction.
Does a company generally form a team to work with you? How does that happen?
I think that also relates to how you define the system. So for example, I've worked with people. So usually what happens in large organizations is that the sustainability department is super engaged, and they have so much knowledge, and they are masters and PhDs, but they don't know how to scale up or permeate that to the larger organization, right? So I've worked there, and we work with strategies that are about scaling up their impact. That's one, but by preference, we look at change agents throughout the organization, you know, the leverage points in their system, and that information comes from them, and then move forward. And of course, even when it's top bottom, and when I get to talk to a CEO, then even then we need the change agents, right? So it depends a lot on understanding that business system. Is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it innovative? You know, how does change usually happen, and adapt to that to get the best result.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of questions about more case studies and examples. People are really interested in getting their hands on this to see how they might use it directly. But I'm thinking about the outputs of the engagements and the use of the model. Are the outputs more understanding where there's a collective understanding of the relationships, or are outputs specific decisions or regulations or laws that might be developed as a result of that? So how do you go from the inputs to the model to the arrays and understanding to a particular decision, like a new policy to protect the Amazon or something like that?
I think, Edward, that intention is crucial. So you have to set up an intention on what do you want to see and to map, because this is what it's all about. So once you start there, for example, in our transformation group, we knew that it was about transformation. So we started, and you see it now as the circles, but in the way, it was just connecting bubbles all the way down, and then we rearrange it for better understanding. But it was really about having the perspective of the group and mapping this collective intelligence so we can have a common ground to move on, because this is the most difficult part. I didn't realize that collaboration was so difficult, and we don't have so many tools to collaborate. Actually, we have learned how to compete, but not always how to collaborate. So by using this in a simple way on mapping a conversation allows you to see where is the common ground with that group of multiple disciplines and different perspectives, so you can move forward in terms of convergent strategies.
Right. So a related question from Bonnie Christensen: can 7-Vortex be used without a consultation, or does it require both the software and a consultative relationship?
7-Vortex is a web-based tool, so it is free. You have to go to 7vortex.com, and then you can get your user for free. If you want to have a deeper understanding, it depends on what you want to see. You have here 3 experts on using the tool, and also in business organizations or education, for example. So we're happy to help, and our mails are on the screen.
Yeah, you say that it's simple, and I think the relationship is probably simple, but I think it might be a little bit daunting for people to say, just jump in and I understand how these relationships work and how to pull them together. Specifically so there is one question from Dorian about it, who says it's not clear how specifically these network maps are drawn from biomimicry of specific natural systems. So can you just sort of tie it back specifically to biomimicry again, the biological systems for people?
Yeah, so it is here, is on the open vortex, but it is that by designing it, we have used these life principles, and the biological part behind it is the deep pattern. So we're mapping biological relationships, and for example, in biology, they use it like this, like a positive, neutral, negative, negative, and this is the way that you can see it. But you don't have this approach on actually seeing it like with this part. So by understanding the energy exchanges, which I think is the future also to better understand markets and externalities. So if we can put all these things together, then we'll have the biological pattern. And the idea was to make biomimicry so simple that you can do biomimicry, and you can use biomimicry by using the tool, but you don't have to fully understand the whole biomimicry thinking behind. This is just for like deepening in the design process.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add something to that, because these relationships that we are creating in nature, we have 3 kinds of relationship. I am the biologist of the group,
Yeah.
So I like to talk about it. And we can have relationships that are positive for both, are neutral or detrimental. So we have the combination of these, like a plus, 0, and minus. And the relationships in the ecosystems are like that. So what the ecosystem is trying to do is to go to cooperative relationships. So plus relationships, win-win relationships. And that's how, if we are able to see those relationships in a map, we can see that maybe we have predatory relationships, which is minus for one item, one concept, one institution, one group, whatever, and positive for the other one. But if we see the whole system, we can see that the resources and the flows of information and everything will come back to that bubble as well. It's not just a little relationship. Like when we see the ecosystem, even if we have predatory relationships in an ecosystem, we see that the energy is flowing and it is self-regulating as well. So this kind of knowledge of ecosystems is you can read them from these maps, which is the main thing is that what are the relationships.
Mm-hmm. There's a question from Christopher Cunningham, who's a climatologist. He says, very interesting tool. I'm a climatologist and see several similarities between ecological relationships and relationships among the climate components. Do you think the tool is suitable for use in climate research? Are you aware of someone who has used the tool within this context for climate research?
I think it's suitable for this because it is about the energy exchanges that happens in the climate. But if we come here and we can see if there is something on climate, for example. So you have this part. So I don't know, low carbon resilient ecosystems, SDGs, carbon credits. There are many things. So there is not something specifically maybe that I'm aware, but I've seen many things on this kind of climate approach, but not in the way that I think he's asking.
Okay, a persistent question from Ashwani about the tool itself and how you're squeezing results out of it. So he's asking, it reminds me of a placebo effect. Getting people to collaborate is itself the key. I can use concepts mapping to do exactly what you say you do. Show me how you would do it different than an alternative protocol.
So I can add something to that, Edward. So I think we're moving beyond the stage where we are finding solutions by ourselves. And what this collective intelligence is telling us is that something happens when you put two people together, that it's not 1 + 1 = 2, that 1 + 1 = 10, no? And that's what this tool helps facilitate. So that's still very abstract, right? You have to experience it to be able to see that. And the results cannot be anticipated. You cannot anticipate what the result is going to be exactly. Otherwise, there is no emergence. Still very abstract. The way I try to leave out that abstract part is how you measure the flow. So for example, in my case, I can measure the financial flows as they run through the system, if that's what success will mean for the project. So we want to have a better return on investment or whatever it is. I can see how the flows of money move from one party to the other, and if they are aligned to the value creation in that company. I can see whether we are having depredatory relationship with a bank through debt, if we are regenerating our business model in the sense that we create more business opportunities for others and creating niches, or we are becoming monopolistic and closing again. So all of these, if you really want to have a tangible result, you concentrate on the result and you see how that, whatever it is you want to measure, is flowing in the system. But the magic happens when you're actually doing the exercise and you get to see things that you did not anticipate. So you don't come in doing the exercise with an answer, looking for an answer.
Yeah, I think the concept of plus minus energy flows, positive and negative, I think are really important, and that's something I've not seen before. and how you define that, and maybe focus on the ones that are negative is probably a pathway forward, because
Yes.
you want to kind of minimize those and get on to put your energy into the ones that are positive.
Yeah, totally.
Several comments about how cool this is, and thank you for making the presentation. One from Nancy Picard: I feel this tool would be such a helpful visual for my clients when working in systemic approaches. So thank you for this. And the tool is free, but you do have a paid part of this. It's not like this is an upsell or anything, but I think if they're storing data, so what is it that people would have to pay for if they?
So if they want to get their Vortex or Maps private, there is a membership of 10 euros per month or 100 euros per year. And we wanted to make it accessible. Yeah.
Okay, so if you use the tool, your data is accessible to anybody that's out there, unless you want to make it private,
yeah,
and then you pay to make it private.
and
Okay.
extra features, but yeah, that's mainly the part.
But only a few dollars or a few euros a month. That's not a big.
Yeah, we wanted to make to lead the biomimicry business following a regenerative path. So this is actually a positive relationship if you want to use it further.
Right. But 7 Vortex, I would think, depends more on your consulting. People wanted to bring you in for consulting solutions. Then.
Yeah, well, I think as biomimics, we needed this different approach to express how the system was working or is working. So it's more an expression tool and a biomimicry journal. And it is meant also to help all these sustainability pioneers, of course.
Right. There are some specific questions about how could it be applied to climate change, gene mutation, some more general, specific natural systems. So I think that people can contact maybe you directly if they have more specific questions, because we're actually past the hour, so we don't have time to do that. But they can contact you. Then contact any of the panelists, because you have their websites for their companies there. I thought maybe before we leave, maybe I could get each of you to maybe make a closing less than 1 minute kind of observation, or something that you would share with the audience, maybe going from Melina to Carolina and then finally with Hugo. So Melina, what message would you like to leave with the audience?
Well, first of all, I want to say that sustainability needs this systemic thinking, and that to use these kind of tools just make us to see complexity and to take better decisions, and to really act fast and go further on the level that we are now. So I encourage you very much to use it.
Right. Good comment. It is complexity, and I think, Hugo, you had said that in the beginning, that it is taking complex systems, or I think it was Carolina that said that, taking complex systems and showing the relationship. So I think that's really important. Carolina?
I think Meli already put it very nicely and stole my words kind of, but one thing that I could add besides that, I've been in the field almost for 20 years. I started as, the typical sustainability cities initiative, and then went to the financial sector, still with sustainability. And it was not until I understood that the more we learn from the natural world, because we emerge from it, the closer we're going to be to sustainability. So when I learned about all of this biomimicry, and there are more, but we truly believe biomimicry is the strongest one, that you get to see what sustainability really is about. At least to me, that really made a lot of sense. And of course, the fact that 7 Vortex makes it easier for us. But I felt like sharing that piece of information if that helps anyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hugo, final comment.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity, Edward, and thanks to Carolina and to Melina for joining us here and sharing the perspective. I think it is something that comes also from the heart. Like we needed something digital to express and to enhance the human potential that we have for moving forward as a species. So if that is helpful, I always think that it's never about the tool. but this is something that we can share our knowledge, and whatever you put there and whatever you see there might be inspiring someone else somewhere else in the world. So don't think it as too small, but really do it with your full intention, because someone else could be learning from you there.
Great. And that is a really good way to end. So I just want to thank all three of you for great presentations. The last few comments are just really very appreciative. They said, one comment is that the work you've done is so important, and your product and consulting service shows that. So, thank you. Thank all three of you for that. We have several other webinars. So before I sign off, I just wanted to remind you that the handouts are in the GoToWebinar download window. Please click on the blue ones and sign up for additional SSF webinars like 7 Vortex. To use what we do is all free. So please take advantage of we do, and please take advantage of 7 Vortex. You should go up, sign up, register, and play around with it. See what you think, and I'm sure Hugo will make that
a self-learning tool. It's about self-emergence, guys.
Yes. Okay, and I want to thank the audience, especially those that stuck with us right to the very end. And you'll get an email by the end of the day with access to the video. So thank you again to the panelists and to the audience. And with that, I'm going to end the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edward.
Thank you all. Thank you, Edward. ¿Y ahora qué tengo que hacer?
No sé todavía.